Hi guys, Sean here from DigiDirect. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Olympus EM1 Mark III. Now we'll see that this is a camera that takes almost all of the features from Olympus's powerhouse EM1X from last year and packaged it into a camera system body that is much smaller than the EM1X, much more comparable to what we're used to seeing from a compact mirrorless system. Now, this is a bit of a special video in that I was able to take the EM1 Mark III with me on a 2-week holiday to the South Island of New Zealand. This was not a trip that was sponsored by Olympus in any way. I just happened to be going on vacation, which lined up with the timing of when I had access to the camera. So I've had quite a bit of use of the camera, and I was able to use it to photograph subjects that I might not otherwise be able to shoot if I was here in Melbourne. Now, we're also shooting this video right now on the EM1 Mark III. Now, if you'd like to jump to a certain section of this review, just check the video description below. And as always, if you find the video helpful, please like and subscribe. Physically speaking, this is almost identical to the EM1 Mark II body, which is actually a big plus. This means it's the same compact size that we've seen from previous models, which makes it very portable. When I was packing my bags for this trip, it was super easy to fit this in. One thing that is updated from the Mark II body is the addition of a joystick, which is great. I love joysticks, and I use it as my primary means of navigating menus and changing the AF point, and it does a great job for that. We have a fully articulating LCD touchscreen, dual SD card slots. We've got mic jacks, headphone jacks, HDMI, and USB ports. The camera has a nice grip that is actually slightly larger than on the Mark II, and it balances very well, even with some of the more front-heavy lenses that you might be using with this camera. Of course, it's a fully weather-sealed camera. This was great, as on my trip I was shooting in both rain and in dusty conditions with high winds, and the camera was not at all worse for wear. As a result, it held up fantastically. We've got the same BLH1 battery from the Mark II here, and it does a decent job. The battery life is about the same. Over the course of my trip, I shot just over 2,000 images and close to 20 gigabytes of video on about 2.5 battery charges. You can also charge the battery by USB, including via a power bank. One nice feature that is new, even compared to the EM1X, is the ability to customize the control panel menu. Menus aren't necessarily Olympus's strongest suit, so between this control panel customization and the My Menu customization that we've had for a little while now, plus the joystick, this definitely speeds up your navigations throughout the camera. I'll say one quick word about lens options here. I used the 12 to 100mm f4 lens for basically the entire trip, and it was fantastic. It's an excellent pairing for this camera. The focal range is so broad that I can use it for almost any kind of shot, from astro to super telephoto, etc. It has a constant f4 aperture, it's sharp, well built, and weather sealed, and it has image stabilization. For the whole 2 weeks, I never felt that I needed another lens, so it's a very good option to use with this camera. So internally, the EM1 Mark III has a 20 megapixel sensor, which is pretty standard these days for a Micro Four Thirds camera. You're not going to see a huge difference in picture quality between this model and the previous one, but as you can see from the sample images, 20 megapixels is certainly sufficient. Now, if you do need higher resolution shots, you can use the high-res multi-shot mode, which is going to take 16 images and blend it together in camera for you. Now, a new wrinkle here, though, is that now you can do this handheld. On previous models, you had to do that from a tripod. Now we can do this straight handheld. So these high-res images that you're seeing, I shot them all handheld. Now, the reason that we can do that handheld, amongst many other things, is thanks to the new processor inside of the EM1 Mark III. So this has the brand new, first time we've seen it, a TruePic 9 processor. And Olympus says that this processor is as powerful as 2 TruePic 8 processors, which coincidentally is exactly what the EM1X had. So that's why we can see, all of these features from the EM1X put into this much smaller body because of that much increased power from the new processor. Now, as in every Olympus review, I'm going to take a moment to praise the in-body image stabilization system here. So the EM1 Mark III matches the EM1X in that it has 7 stops of in-body image stabilization. And in fact, when you use it with the 12 to 100mm lens like I did, or with the 300mm lens, that bumps up to 7.5 stops. Frankly, this is ridiculous. It's a huge amount of image stabilization. It's hands down the best system on the market. If you're shooting, handheld long exposure, you can shoot very slow shutter speeds handheld, long focal lengths. You can shoot video is ridiculous. It's almost like you're permanently on a gimbal. You can do a lot of movements that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Just a fantastic system. I'm not going to drone on about it here because I always talk about it when we discuss Olympus cameras, but this system is the best they've ever put out. Really, really effective, and just does a fantastic job for anyone who's going to be shooting with slow shutter speeds, long focal lengths, or any video work in general. Now, somewhat related to that is the Live ND feature, which it gains from the EM1X. This is essentially an electronic ND filter that you can use for photos. So for example, using it here to take shots of running water to give it that milky look, I'm shooting handheld with the Live ND feature here at about a 1 or 2 second exposure. No ND filter on the camera at all. Normally you need an external ND filter to get slow enough exposure to do that, and you probably need to shoot it from a tripod as well. I don't need either of those things to do that. Of course, autofocus is a big feature on the EM1 Mark III, and they've taken this directly from the EM1X, meaning the EM1 Mark III has a 121-point all-cross type phase detect AF system, which covers 80% of the frame. Now, they've even made some improvements here versus the EM1X, specifically in the area of face and eye detection. That's been improved significantly. I'm actually using that right now to shoot this video. I can see it's got the box around my face. If I come a bit closer, for example, even if I step out of the light, it's going to track my face as I get closer. I can see it's still following my face there. I can get back into that, and it's going to do quite a good job at that. Overall, the focusing system here on the EM1 Mark III is very robust. It works on a lot of different types of subjects and so on. There is one slight difference between the EM1X and the EM1 Mark III. This is pretty much the only feature that is not carried from the EM1X, and that is the subject recognition features in autofocus. So there is a bit of a difference between the two AF systems, but really the EM1 Mark III still provides fantastic, exceptional results, and on a consistent basis. The camera also has extremely high burst shooting speeds with 18 frames per second with AF tracking, or up to 60 frames per second with AF lock. Of course, we've got Olympus's Pro Capture mode in here, which is a system where it's going to, if you hold down the shutter button halfway, it's going to continuously buffer images, and then when you actually press the shutter button all the way, it's going to save the last 14 images there. So if you're not sure exactly when the action is going to occur, and maybe you press the shutter button a little bit too late, you're going to still have the shot. Now, for low light and astrophotographers, the EM1 Mark III has Olympus's Live Time and Live Composite modes, which they've had for quite some time, but I find are consistently underappreciated. They're very good because they allow you to essentially take a series of images that are composited together in camera, and you can watch the exposure grow and increase and then stop when you're happy. So it allows you to kind of eyeball the image a lot more. You don't need to know the perfect settings right off the bat. It just makes it a lot easier and faster to shoot astro. I'm not a big astro shooter, and I use these features to good effect to shoot when we're outside some of the towns. It was very, very easy. Adding to that, though, the EM1 Mark III gains a brand new feature called Starry Sky AF, which is for focusing when you're shooting in dark, nighttime astro situations like that. It's got two modes. Essentially, you've got either speed priority, which you use when you're using a wide-angle lens, which will allow you to focus on the stars quickly when you've got a wide field of view, or you can use accuracy priority, which will focus when you're using a telephoto lens, primarily on when you're focusing on like a small select series of stars, or perhaps the moon or something like that. Video-wise, the camera is quite competent. It can shoot Cinema 4K at up to 30 frames per second using the OM Log 400 profile as well, which is Olympus's log picture profile, which is a flat picture profile, which is very good for color grading if you're going to be doing that. You can also shoot 1080p at up to 120 frames per second. These are standard specs for a camera of this category and so on these days, but I would argue that the main benefit for video shooters is that it's a very competent shooter, but that image stabilization just takes it over the top. The fact that you can use this camera and have it be like you have a gimbal, again, I won't drone on more and more about this, but it just does a fantastic job for video shooters. Also, the fact that it's very portable and light. Some of these videos that you see here were shot on 4-hour-long hikes. If I had a larger, heavier camera, I wouldn't be too happy about lugging it around. This was quite, light and compact, and it didn't really bother me. So it's a camera that you can get into places that you might not normally be able to bring big video rigs in and shoot, in a log picture profile and in Cinema 4K. Just did a fantastic job. A few final grab bag features here. New on this camera is that it has fisheye and keystone compensation. We've also got focus bracketing and focus stacking, and the camera is compatible with the Olympus Capture software. You can connect wirelessly to that. You can control the camera even from your computer wirelessly, which is helpful for a studio situation. Overall, I really like the Olympus EM1 Mark III. I found it to be a very powerful camera in a very compact package. It's got great ergonomics, good weather sealing, market-leading image stabilization, an excellent autofocus system, good astro features, and powerful video as well. Again, that is again buoyed by the image stabilization features in there as well. I think the EM1X was a very, very powerful camera, but I think a lot of people were deterred by the bulk of that camera. Taking all the features from that camera and putting it into this much smaller system, I think is going to make the EM1 Mark III much more palatable to a much wider audience. Personally speaking, I really enjoyed my 2 weeks with the camera, and I would highly recommend it. Now, the EM1 Mark III is going to be out soon. You can place a pre-order on our website at www.digidirect.com.au, or if you're watching this once the camera is released, you can come into one of our stores and test it out for yourself, see what you think. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia, which is just outside the Perth CBD. Thanks, guys. Take care.